Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over. My next guest is a member of the United States equivalent of the royal family, an accomplished educator, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. He currently leads the Special Olympics organization, started by his mother, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, in 1968. Today it serves nearly 4 million athletes in 170 countries. For Tim Shriver, it was not politics or even JFK that led him to discover his vocation, but another Kennedy and a series of unlikely teachers that showed him the way. He's the author of an affecting new memoir, Fully Alive, Discovering What Matters Most. Please welcome to the program, Tim Shriver.
Thank you for being here.
Pleasure to have you.
Thank you very
now,
much.
You write in the book, and when your brother Mark was here, he told me about your mother, Eunice Shriver, opening the backyards of your homes, even when your father was a diplomat in other countries, to children with disabilities. What was it that drew her to this mission?
Well, I think in a way she had an instinctive commitment to what matters most in her own way. I think she had grown up with a sister who had special needs at a time when there was enormous stigma, fear, the idea of caring for, valuing that life was unknown really in the culture. But she was told by her mother and father, take care of your sister Rosemary, include her, welcome her, make sure she's a part of everything. And yet, so, you know, she could see two things. One, this enormous love and joy she had with her sister, and then this enormous shame and stigma that she saw out in the outside world. And she set out with her life to attack the stigma and to promote the love. And so she'd go expert knocking, doctors, policymakers, politicians, and they would all say, you know, Eunice, I'm sorry. And she said, you know, to heck with you, I'll do it myself. And in that energy comes from faith, comes from anger, comes from love. She found the outlets in the simple acts of welcoming children to her house.
Camp Shriver.
Camp Shriver, but they came, Raymond, from institutions. Some of them came having been separated from their parents at birth. These were the children that no one wanted. And here we were, I was a little boy, and to me all they were was a team for a kickball game, you know, or a group to ride ponies with. Or,
what did you think when these children came?
Well, you know,
I
think in retrospect, I remember these scenes. You know, children remember only scenes when they're very young. I mean, I was only 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old when this was getting underway. But I remember seeing them arrive, and I remember the specialness of these moments when they'd get off the buses. I didn't know where the buses were coming from. How could I? I didn't know the trouble and struggle that these children had experienced. But what I did see was that when they were in my house, my mother was excited, the volunteers were excited, I was excited. We'd spin off every morning and sing, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. And I think to myself, you know, how did she know that if you're happy and you know it, you'd be there? This book is my attempt to remind people and to invite people. When we think of Thanksgiving, we think of the holidays, we think of Christmas. You know, everybody wants to give somebody a tie or a sweater.
Please,
or
no more ties.
Cufflinks or cologne or whatever it is, we all end up giving one another. My hope is that this book will invite people to give to one another meaningful experiences that really matter most.
Yeah, and I want to get to some of those that you discovered in the course of your life. Tell me about Rosemary, your aunt. She figures prominently in this book in your life. She was had some disabilities early on, but she was fully engaged in the life of this family. And then at 23, your grandfather attempts to help her. Tell us what happened and how you come to know her later.
I mean, I think what you have to remember is that Rosemary was born at a time when The Black Stork was the film that had come out 2 years before her birth, encouraging women to allow their newborn children to die. After 6 years after her birth, Oliver Wendell Holmes, the Supreme Court Justice, pens the famous decision authorizing the institutionalization and sterilization of people with intellectual disabilities. 3 generations of imbeciles is enough. Imbecile, idiot, moron, retard. These words echo in the hearts and minds and souls of people who have touched this population as these enormous sources of pain. But Rosemary came, and what did her mother and father say? You will stay at home, you will be treated like the other children, and we will do everything we can to help you. When it came time, and she was, you know, they looked for schools, there weren't any. They looked for doctors, they were frustrated. They looked for convents to which they sent Rosemary. And finally, you know, the irony of her life is that she was the happiest just before this operation, by all accounts. Her letters to her father, they were together in England together. She was at a convent outside of London, caring for younger children, feeling very fulfilled. And she had to leave London because of the war.
Right.
And when she came back to the United States, she was alone, she was frustrated, and my grandfather was told there was a new Nobel Prize given to these doctors who have come up with this innovative way to help people, and it's going to cure Rosemary, it's going to make her better, it's going to fix her challenges. And unfortunately it didn't. It backfired and became one of the great sadnesses of his life. And of my mother's too, and of all her brothers and sisters. But the sadness, the struggle, the frustration ends up producing in a kind of almost mystical transformation, this bursting forth of energy and commitment to ending that shame that produced all that pain and isolation.
And she was isolated for a good long period. She lived in an institution in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
You come to know her, though. Eunice, your mother, opens the doors of the house, invites her in.
Yes.
How did that happen after such a long period of...
I think my mother went to her brother, who had become the President of the United States, and said, it's time. It's time we break this secret, you know. And I like to think of every family needing to do this. You know, there's all these great lines in literature about families being this and happy families and this. I think families tend to all harbor secrets, things that they're afraid to share.
Yeah.
This was one of those things that I think my mother said finally to her brother president, you know, you've won now, maybe she said. Let's share this news. Let's end this stigma. The President of the United States needs to welcome someone with intellectual disabilities to the White House. We need to tell our family story, and we need to break the doors open. Rosemary all of a sudden becomes a guest, a frequent one, 4, 5, 6 times a year. I'm a little boy. She comes to our house, and there she is.
Can't speak a lot.
She does not. A few words here and there, but she loved to eat. She loved desserts. She loved to swim.
No diet food?
No diet food. More, you know, after the ice cream was cleared, she'd say more ice cream and these kinds of things. And she'd smile, and she'd play cards, and she'd take walks. And she had a simplicity and a honesty, if you will, that reminded me over and over again. I can't say I saw it at that time in my life, but I could tell there was something different about the way in which she made our family feel than anyone else.
And what of that experience, seeing her in the midst of your family, what did you take from her? What lingers now?
Well, it took me a long time, to be honest, to learn what she meant. I can't say it was quick, you know. I had to fail myself. I had to struggle. I had to find my way to the mystics. I had to find my way to the cloud of unknowing and to Teresa of Avila and to Irenaeus, other great...
Who all weave their way in and out of this narrative, by the way.
They all come in, all these saints, not because I'm trying to, you know, give credit to saints, but because they guided me. The cloud of unknowing telling me, you know, and Eckhart, you know, that there's a presence of God within you. And to start relaxing a little bit. And I could all of a sudden see that in Rosemary, this was a woman who didn't have to fight the world.
Yeah.
And the mystics were kind of saying the same thing. Don't fight the world. God loves you already. It is all within, you know. This gift of love has been already given to you. You don't have to go out and earn it. And so slowly over time, falling in love with my wife, Linda, and realizing that she too was trying to tell me, don't worry, you don't have to impress me, you just...
And yet there was that expectation. Being part of this Shriver Kennedy clan,
right.
You've got to earn your way to the table, you've got to accomplish something great so that you earn the title.
I think every family does that. I'm sure you were raised by a mom and dad who had great hopes for you, and they've been fulfilled, I'm sure.
Well,
but
I don't know about that.
At some level, the mistake I think we all make is that we tend to think that other people's expectations for turning us into something are more important than the expectations we find within ourselves. And I think what Rosemary taught, what this book is about, is me coming to understand that the greatest expectations I had to fulfill were God's expectations that were unique to me. And I didn't have to become my uncles or my mother or my father. I didn't have to become Raymond. I just had to become Tim. And even though that's a little bit embarrassing to say, and it's a little bit self-absorbed sounding. I think it was actually the most selfless thing I could learn.
You say in the book you were reluctant to embrace the family business.
Yeah.
Special Olympics. What happened? What changed that? Was this all part of that journey?
I think once I found that a sense of my own interior peace, and I grounded myself in a spiritual practice of silence and prayer, I found that I could now re-enter into a social or a cultural setting where people would come up to me and say, "Oh, you're Eunice's son," or "You're President Kennedy's what? You know, which one are you?" I think as a younger man, I couldn't handle that. I needed to run away. You know, let me find myself. I don't want to be treated as a number in a big puzzle. I wanted to be treated as me. And when I finally got to the point where I could feel my own sense of strength, I thought to myself, this is great work, this Special Olympics stuff.
You make reference in the book, near the end, you coin a term called diffabilities, as opposed to disability, which we always affix to people with any little thing that's different from us. Why diffability, and what have you learned about diffability and the impact of spending time with these people, even if on the surface they don't seem to quite meet the measure of the rest of the world or what the world expects?
Well, I think if there's one thing that people of faith could agree on, it's that the divine God has created things and they are good. All of them. No exceptions. God, as one friend of mine told me when she was pregnant for the first time, does not make mistakes. If that's true, if everybody is good, then we can't justify labeling people with negative labels. We can't justify saying, I've found out what's wrong with Arroyo. He's got a different kind of X or Y. And it's a diss, you know, and walk around with a diss on my name. I mean, it's just a fundamentally non-religious attitude. I know why we do it. We do it sometimes for very good reasons, to try to help a particular group or to try to address the needs of a particular group. But in the end of the day, the spiritual, the religious worldview is everybody has ability. They're all different and they're all beautiful. And I think we need to help language that reminds us of that every day. Otherwise, we fall into the trap of treating one another negatively, I'm afraid.
You talk about some of the people here who you've encountered through Special Olympics and how they've changed your life. Can you briefly tell us about one or two of them and,
well, I think
what they did, what you took from them?
The reason I tried to put this into a book form, Raymond, is because I think we overlook often the gifts of people who are outside the mainstream. Take Donald Page. Donald's born, healthy little baby, gets a very significant illness, has multiple seizures, almost dies several times, raised by a dad who's a dairy farmer and a mom who's a full-time mom in rural Ireland. Barely survives, becomes a full-time job for this mom and dad, gets to school, finds a coach, is encouraged to learn a sport in Special Olympics, the beanbag lift. He gets his moment. He's in front of 1,500, almost 2,000 people in an arena in downtown Dublin. His mom and dad leave that morning. He's on the bus with the other athletes. And he sits in front of an audience, and his job is to lift this bag and move it from here to here. And he starts, and I'm sitting in the front row, and I've got celebrity, you know, the president of Ireland is next to me, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, this is going to be terrible. He's got such significant challenges. He starts, he moves the hand. It takes him several minutes just to get the hand onto the ball, onto the softball. And by the time he gets it halfway along, the crowd is mesmerized. And I talked to his dad, and he said in the background, he said he was thinking, I hope they give him time. All he needs is a bit of time. 18 minutes it took him to move that object just across the table, and the place explodes. And the place is on fire. It could have been the Final Four. And I think what they were saying, what that crowd was saying, and what Donald was saying, you know, with all the guts and courage to do his best, that was all he had. And it was enough. You know, they knew they'd seen an athlete that was as good as Pele or LeBron James or Tom Brady or anybody else. You have to stop and pause and look to see Donald. You can't rush through life. and notice him.
Well, that's what I love about this book. It really is about seeing beyond the surface and finding the great gift that's there if you take the time to look.
We have to slow down a bit to do it, and that's why I hope this book is, in some ways, it's a thank you letter to all these athletes, to Donald, to Daniel Thompson, to Loretta Claiborne, to my Aunt Rosemary, to my mom, people who slowed down in life, who looked me in the eye, who reminded me that I was also a child of God, to Jean Vanier, the great saint, living saint of this community. These are human beings who are not on the headlines.
I want to talk for a moment about, while you bring this up, and as I read through this, your thoughts on this prenatal testing that we're seeing now, where people are testing for disability. Your thoughts on the morality of that, and what would you tell a parent who's considering this or perhaps has already received a diagnosis?
Well, I think the best we can do is fight very hard to remove the sense in which these people are liabilities, valueless or less valued, you know, because when a mom or a dad receives a diagnosis, it terrifies them. And the reason most of the time it terrifies them is because they think this will be a horrible burden for me, for the child, for my family. They think their life will be derailed. That's wrong. We know that's wrong. We know that's wrong. So my hope is that as the testing grows, as the fear of difference grows, as the fear of not being tall enough or strong enough or rich enough, or all that is just the tyranny of normalcy. Human beings have never thrived in that kind. None of us can thrive because none of us are normal. None of us are the same. We have to help parents. I mean, I don't mention in the book, but when my uncle was alive, Ted Kennedy and Sam Brownback, a conservative and a liberal,
I was just about to mention that bill,
got together to do a bill that requires that women who have a prenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome or other genetic disorders receive scientifically accurate information about the life course of these people. I'm still working to try to get this information out so that obstetricians will share it with moms and dads at that moment, because we can't deny it's a difficult moment. Sure, but you
want to give people the full spectrum of what the life potential is.
I want them to see a little boy, 10 years old, with Down syndrome on a bicycle. I want them to see him in school. I want them to see him on a family vacation. I want them to see her running a race, living life fully.
Could you do a favor for me?
I can try.
On page 86 of the book, you have this prayer that your father wrote. Could you read that?
Yeah, it's amazing. I just found this by coincidence, actually.
Beautiful prayer.
Almighty God, he wrote, we thank you. We thank you for giving us a chance to work on behalf of 170 million human beings on Earth with intellectual disabilities, for helping us to understand why you have created them, because they teach us to love one another, because they teach us to respect all of your creatures, of every race, every religion, every nation, of all ages, because they teach us that we are all, every one of us, dependent on you and on one another. Help us, Lord, to respect and love all of your creatures and all of your creation. Help us, Lord, because we are your servants. Amen.
Tim Shriver, thank you for being here. You're a great testament to your mother and father. And thanks for the book. It's really beautiful. Fully Alive, Discovering What Matters Most is available at bookstores everywhere and online, and it really is worth your time. It's a gorgeous book.